The biggest mistake I think people make when starting new relationships or on a first date, especially, is saying too much too soon.
Yeah, and that's connected to that radical honesty piece. We often feel like we just have to express so much and people need to know our vulnerabilities so quickly. But if that's not tied to emotional intelligence, you're basically just trauma dumping and you're overexposing your struggles too soon.
To create trauma bonding.
Yeah, and that could be a really dangerous thing because it creates this separation, this disconnect, and it does the opposite of your intention,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting. Whereas the slow burn, like true radical honesty is like storytelling.
Yeah.
It adds a sense of
Intrigue.
trust from
Yeah.
building this connection over time. It's more sultry. It's what actually creates romance at all. In this day and age of hookup culture and just swipe left or right, it's like we demand to know and to be connected now. And it creates this sadness in us, this sense of lack, this sense of void in our connections beyond just romantic relationships, because we believe and we presume that we know everyone already. And it kills romance. It just kills it.
Yeah.
Where's the tension? Where's the push-pull? Where's the polarity even have room to breathe? And so this is, a reclaiming of that is actually courting somebody and knowing when to actually do it to express in the right pacing. Like there's an art form to communication and expression on those first dates that is so crucial. And to just offload like that, just to try to feel connected is a traumatic response.
Yeah, because it does create a sense of safety when you share everything right off the bat and the other person does too. It does create the sense of like, okay, like I'm so relieved. Like I can tell you everything about me and you're still gonna love me and want to be with me. And there's the lost art of courting that we just don't have anymore really because of social media and because of the fact that it's too easy now to assume that we know who everyone is based on what we see online and this projection of this image of who we think they are based on what they share, what they talk about publicly. It's not the real thing, because as much as we can try to be authentic online, nobody is ever going to see the full picture, the full scope of who you are unless they're actually with you face to face, heart to heart, having these connection moments. And I think that there's such a lost art to being slow about that and to slowly peel each layer of the onion, find out who they are, not in a way that makes you feel like you're so overwhelmed by who they are right away, because you're trying to wrap your head around their entire journey, but just in a way that it's like reading a good book. You're like reading the page and you're like, ooh, I'm so excited to see what happens next. But you're not just gonna sit and read the book cover to cover because it's a really good book. You take time to read it because it's that good, because you want to savor every word.
Right. I don't want the bullet points. I want to actually enjoy the like textural, imaginative world of you. Imagining I'm reading a book versus this like it's too quick otherwise. And if we express so quick about the bullet points of who we are because we're used to that in career or our bios or whatever, the quick synopsis, as if that's real connection, then we're actually pushing people away versus actually like creating space for them to come in and also like discover more of who you are. Like we discover more of who we are through the mystery and the curiosity of another person saying something really unique and beautiful, and that sparks something in you to create more questions, and then there's a beautiful dance, like this lost dance of communication. And are we perfect with that? No, but we've have enough trust built from that slow build of friendship into romance that we have established that sense of like, wow, every day I'm really curious about what is going to say on this page, this day in the page of your storybook with me. Like, let's do that. And like, that's a beautiful thing because we're actually building something together versus just trying to get all the cliff notes.
Yeah, exactly. It's so powerful to wake up in the morning and feel like your partner is a blank slate because you are also a blank slate, and to not carry over the things that you have done, identified with, achieved, created in your life, and to just expect that that's the version of you that you're going to be that day. Because if you can wake up and say, I get to create who I am today, and I'm not going to let my past define me, then you're not going to have that mentality with your partner either. And you're not going to use their past as a way to define or assume who they are. And I think that in long-term relationships, that is something that can happen, where you just get so comfortable with each other and you think you know them so well because you've spent so much time with them that you don't leave any room for mystery. You don't leave any space for imagination. You don't leave any wonder or opportunity for curiosity. And I think curiosity is the most important thing when you are sustaining long term, is to stay curious, not only about yourself and who you're becoming and how much you are growing so that you can be the best version of yourself for that person and for your own self, but also to have that curiosity about who are they going to be today, and allow yourself to be surprised, give them the opportunity to surprise you, because to be so comfortable is the biggest downfall.
It's true.
It's that moment when you get comfortable, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to be in trouble if you stay there.
Comfort is where romance can die.
Yeah,
I think it's like on that push-pull tension point, that polarity piece that we're talking about, where you don't have to be like a completely off-the-wall person where it's like, oh my God, what are they going to do? But it's this sense of like, wonder, and like what's going to happen next, and where are we going to be led to, and let's create this adventure in our lives. That's so important to designing a good life together, and choosing to see each other as that blank slate, but also choosing to be like, I wonder what's going to happen today together. I love that.
Yeah, and something you said earlier too about creating that foundation, I think that's also a really important, crucial piece that I don't see happening a lot in our culture of quick.
It's a gratification.
That desire to just want to go so deep with someone right away, but on a romantic level that, for example, like you meet somebody and you just decide, okay, I love them, I'm infatuated by them, like you're in the honeymoon phase, and then you're so quick to move in together, like start a life together, start to incorporate all these things so that your life just becomes enmeshed, but you haven't taken the first step of actually creating a solid foundation of friendship. So then what happens is the first moment that something goes wrong, there's a conflict, there's a challenge in the situation, you face some kind of block, then if you decide that the relationship is not going to work and you decide to part ways, it's really hard to go back to having any kind of relationship if you haven't created a friendship beforehand. Because to meet a stranger and go so deep into your romantic partnership right away, it can be really actually unhealthy in the long run, because then what happens is you part ways and you become strangers again, and then you have this big hole or this big trauma or wound about having gone so deep, like a vulnerability hangover with that person.
Like that,
And then you have to recover from that, and then you create all these blocks around your heart. Like for me, when we first met, I had so many walls up. I had created so much armor around my heart because I had done that, because I had been so radically honest and so vulnerable to a detriment, where it was like I wasn't allowing myself to be this like mystery to be discovered for myself or for the other person. I was creating a story, and I was running and playing that story of who I thought I was, and therefore projecting it on the other person. And then it was really hard to go back to being friends after that, because we actually didn't have.
And you didn't want that again with me.
No, we couldn't dial it back to let's just have a relationship that feels good when you haven't created that first. I think that, I mean, why do we think that divorce is so common? I think it's because people are too quick to get married in the first place. Because they don't actually have a solid foundation to build a relationship on. I see it like a cake. I'm like, you gotta create, like the friendship is this like pie crust, and it's gotta be solid. It can't be like super mushy. It can't be like too crumbly.
It's gotta be.
You gotta add all of the layers, and there's like, yeah, sure, there's like some layers that aren't so pretty, and there's like...
That's okay, it's a cake, it's yummy. It's a yummy
there's
cake.
some that are a little bit more rough than others.
Yeah.
And in the end, you can have this like smooth layer of just like, yeah, this is the romance. This is like when we're feeling really good together and everything is smooth and flowing. Like you can only get to that point truly when you've gone through all of the layers of those sticky points and you've like traversed the highs and lows together. But it doesn't happen on a first date. It's not going to happen even in the first week or in the first month. It's going to take... It's a process and it's a beautiful one, and it's really going to take that devotion and determination to have the patience. That's one thing that we all lack in this fast-paced world is the patience. We're so used to the fast food, the fast turnovers of quick rewards, and we see it in our culture. We see like the way that we drive, the way that we eat, the way that we clean our space. Like I really notice it a lot when I'm in my wounded masculine is I'm rushing, I'm being forceful, I'm harsh, I'm sharp, irritable. I'm not saying that the masculine is like that, but my
shadow side of it.
Yeah, my shadow masculine is like that. And so it's important to, when I catch myself being too quick in those moments, to really just slow down my breath and to just say, okay, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to breathe slowly. I'm going to slow down my thoughts. And I'm going to ask myself, how can I be more in my soft, surrendered, feminine energy? Because then that creates the opportunity to actually enjoy the moment, to be present, to enjoy what is. Because life is always offering us so many gifts. But if we're always like rushing because we're like going for that next dopamine hit, we're like moving towards something all the time. We really don't notice all of the beautiful things around us. And same goes for on a first date.
Well, otherwise we're just being addicts. Like we're, to be in this Western world, you're addicted to media in some sense, just because it's so indoctrinated around you, whether you're going outside, anywhere you go, it's just all of us, it's in our face and stuff like that. So to be able just to slow it down is a rebellious act.
It is. It
and
really
to
is.
do that with a partner is even more so unbelievable.
The art of being slow. It's not easy when all of the programming is telling us to be faster, to be better, and to have an outcome in mind, because everything is so outcome driven. Everything is so goal oriented. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have goals or to have expectations. I mean, you gotta set a standard for what you want to create in your life and what you want to have in your relationships. I'm all for that. And I'm definitely for high standards whenever possible. However, if you're always so focused on the outcome and you're coming into a first date with an outcome in mind of like, oh, I want to sleep with this person, I want to marry this person, I want to have kids with this person, like whatever that is, you're gonna miss the version of them that's in front of you.
Well, that's what I'm reflecting on this. I'm like, if I was at a first date right now and either myself or the other person was like, okay, so how many kids do you want? And like, when do you want to get married? It's like, you would think that person's freaking nuts. You'd be like, what the hell? Because there's no romance in that. It's very like, regimented, and there's no space for love to actually seed and bloom.
And most of the time it's fear-based.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking about the future.
Yes, we're not in the now. Exactly. So the art of just being with each other in the romantic polarity is just to enjoy the moment with each other. But we're so hardwired, and I'm speaking for myself, to just notice in my mind, like I'm so hardwired to think ahead of time all the time. And like there's a beautiful way that the masculine has that, but it could also go into a shadow where like you're trying to control everything. But it's like there's such a beautiful moment of just softening with each other in a date, or if it's after 1,000 or 10,000 dates, and just being like, okay, the world could wait. And all I want to do right now, instead of, going into hyperdrive about all this stuff and getting all whoa, is to slow down and read you like a yummy book. And
so
just
present with every page,
and
every word.
enjoy the bindings, your unique bindings of this book, and what page are we on now, and what verbiage are we expressing with each other now, and it's an art form. It's a poetic way to look at it, and I really do know myself, and I know you do too, that we view relationships as art, as a way of being able to create together is an art form. And we're creating the moment together every single moment, just like we are now, right in front of this beautiful audience.
Yeah, and the best art comes out of being present.
Yeah, it does.
When you can be present, if it's a painting, present with every brush stroke. If it's a poem and it's a spoken word, the best spoken word poems are read slowly. And if it's food, like the art of slow food, and really like the best things are enjoyed slowly.
That's true. It's actually, I'm just reflecting on what I really noticed in you. Like right off the bat, right as we were about to start courting and being with each other, was I noticed how present you were when you were dancing. And I was like, wow, this woman could be so present in this art form. And that made me feel so excited, because I was like, I'm really present when I'm painting.
Exactly.
So what would happen if we created that, and even just a little ounce of that presence with each other?
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Oh my God.
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
So I noticed that with you, and I was like, wow.
All the time. Is like, if you're going to be present with one thing in your life and you can cultivate that and you can practice that art of presence, then when you approach a new relationship, you're going to come at it with that mindset of like, I don't care who you've been. You don't need to tell me your whole story. That will come. We will find out. Things will naturally unfold.
That is such a
like
gift.
the beautiful things and the ugly things, they will all come to light eventually. We don't need to divulge into all of that immediately from this like space of like, oh my God, if I don't tell you everything about me, you're gonna not love me. And vice versa, to not be projecting into the future, to be thinking about who they might be or who you might become if you date them, just to be open to who they are in the moment.
Because love is on its own time. Like the seasons of nature isn't rushing. It is naturally evolving as it goes, and everything in nature, including the animals, is like, got it. And it's trusting that. And that sense of love that is coming from that evolution, that change of season, is really powerful. So if we emanate even just a little bit, reflect a little bit of that, we're going to do great in our relationship, because our relationship is about our inner nature, which is a reflection of our outer nature. It's all correlated.
And nature never rushes, but somehow is always on time. It's so cliche to say that, but it's so true.
It's really true.
To take those wisdom teachings from the natural rhythms of nature and to be able to implement them and practice it and cultivate that slow, steady pace of presence is so valuable, and it's so powerful. And it is a rebellious act, because when the world is telling us to be faster, do better, it's like, can we just love ourselves for exactly who we are and not be always trying to project something other than what we are?
And if we're following the crowd, we're noticing that people are unhealthy, unhappy, full of anxiety. Divorce rates are going through the roof. You look at that statistic and you go, okay, well, I'm going to try to look at what the opposite is. And what is that? It's going slow, it's respecting, it's listening.
It's the opposite of compulsive gluttony. It's tantric.
It's God.
Like, I remember when I was in yoga teacher training, they gave us, there was one chocolate bar, and there was like 60 of us in the room. And they broke the chocolate bar into the tiniest pieces, and they handed each person just this tiny little crumb of chocolate. And then they made us just like sit and just have the chocolate. It's like that saying, like, you want to have your cake and eat it too. It's like, can you just have the chocolate without needing to consume it? And there was a whole lecture that happened where we had to just have the chocolate while listening. And then eventually it was like, okay, now enjoy your piece. And when you do,
so cool.
Really enjoy it. Rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to just eat this piece of chocolate because I have the whole chocolate bar and then I'm going to eat the whole chocolate bar. Can you just enjoy that one piece knowing that that's all you're going to get?
So true.
And having that mindset with someone where you're like, I'm just going to have this version of you in front of me and I'm just going to appreciate it without needing to control, overpower, consume,
which creates more depth and more trust, and it just builds on what you inevitably want anyways.
Yeah.
So it creates and curates that.
Yeah, and not needing the person to share anything more than what is alive for them. I think that's the key word, is like, what is alive for you in the moment? Because depending on where you are in your cycle, and yes, men have a hormonal cycle too, depending on what's going on in your life, what kind of day you had that day, like, you're gonna be in a different mindset, in a different state of what you're feeling comfortable with sharing. And if your partner or the person you're courting can just appreciate what's being shared without this neediness for more. And by the way, women can smell neediness from miles away.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that is a block to romance, is like when your partner is just like needing like needing to know more, needing to receive more from you than what's just being offered.
If you need someone in front of you to be solid, that shows that you're not able to be dependable upon, and you're just gonna crumble per se. You know, and everyone's on their own evolution, but that's not a healthy, positive signal. So, you know, being able to be one with oneself and just being like accepting of yourself in the moment, wherever you're at, even just that alone, even if you're not perfectly like, oh, I love myself so much, oh my God, like this, you know, even if you're just accepting of your experience of that at least is a solid enough base for there not to be a sense of neediness and like control, and you could actually start to like cultivate this beautiful intimacy that you've been craving. And from there, like, oh, me too, and yeah, me too, and it starts to become this like beautiful flow. But if you come at it in this way that there's an expectation or look at me, I'm all this, it's like, guess what? If the partner can sense all that. You know, the person who's in front of you at the date is like, I could read that.
Because it's about your energy.
It's all just energy. Whatever you show up as, it's your energy speaks louder. It always does. And
your partner is going to be able to experience that, whether they're a stranger or you've been married for 30 years.
Energy doesn't lie.
They're going to be able to feel that. And that's why I was so slow in deepening our relationship at first, because I wasn't in a place where I felt like I loved myself fully and I was so sure of myself and confident. And even now, like, I'm still pitching myself to myself every day. Like, it still takes so much for me to feel like I'm 100% confident on any given day. And back then, even more so, I was a mess, and I was just trying to get to a place where I could love myself and I could feel okay alone. And having been in back-to-back relationships, all I wanted to do was just be single and be in a relationship with myself. And even though you were always there for me, we had known each other for 6 years at that point, we've been such good friends and just like real homies, I still did not want to dive into this next romantic partnership, because I had seen that pattern in myself where I'd break up with someone and be like, okay, next person, like, I'm just, you know, like always relying on the next person to make me happy or to support me or whatever it was. With you, I felt that it was different, and it took 2 years.
No, it was funny. We laugh about it a lot because I was good either way. Like I knew my principles, my values, I knew where I was at, I knew my North Star, like all of that helped. Because if I was insecure and wanting to be with you, it would crumble and the whole thing would just implode. And for me, it's like I was falling deeper and deeper in love with you over your imperfections and your truth and how honest we were with each other. I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. And it was a slow burn because you were like, you know, like opening up to me.
Slower than you wanted it to be.
You know.
It was slower than I was ready for.
But hey, we were accepting it for what it was. And I knew no matter what, like I was grateful to have this experience with you. And I think that it really reflected back to me where I was at and knowing what I craved, but also knowing where my boundary lie. And the moment that I was like, hey, like, we're not friends anymore. Like, we're friends, but we're not just friends. And either it's this or that. And because that's where I'm at now with this. And you were like, that's beautiful. And that's refreshing because it's clear. And there's something to really like trust on that. You know?
Yeah, you took the initiative to say, hey, we now have the pie crust. And it's solid.
It's awesome.
Like, I remember that moment where
best
you
pie
were like,
crust.
hey, we have this many years of solid friendship and connection and trust and safety and so many layers of awesomeness that I think we can handle going to that next level.
And you don't have to be perfect.
Exactly.
It doesn't
like,
matter.
As like at that point, I was like, you're right. And thank you for saying that because I wouldn't have been the one to initiate that. And I think it is.
And I knew that.
It is the masculine role to initiate that. And that's what the woman wants too. Like most women that I know, they want to be wanted. They want to be chased.
Is
they
that
want
true?
to be desired. And they
Tell us.
I think it's a
chase,
natural desire of the feminine to want to be courted. And so
it's true.
I think it's really valuable to honor that. And yeah, thank you for like,
thanks, babe.
For being so patient with me and for being so unconditionally loving you weren't waiting, but you were patiently supporting me in my process of learning to love myself and learning to be independent and learning to be in my empowerment because I wanted to show up to our container as an empowered, whole, sovereign being, which I hadn't been in my past relationships.
Exactly.
And in order to do that, I needed those 2 years. That's what I needed. And as the feminine, I was expressing my needs. And as the masculine, you were honoring, respecting, and trusting in my intuition of what I knew that I needed was also what we needed.
Exactly.
That was going to help both of us in the long run.
Exactly.
And it has.
And for me, it was like, is love what I want to control this as, or is love what this wants? And what this wanted was that space, that slowness to build towards that level of clarity. And for me to get that discernment of clarity and speak it back, it's a beautiful moment. And then boom, here we are.
Here we are.
So thank you everyone for being a part of this beautiful, beautiful, transparent journey. And you know, we want to thank you for watching and subscribing and sharing and liking and, you know, really, really putting this open expression that we have with each other in real time out to the public and to your eyes. And, you know, if any of this resonated with you, anything about the first date dynamics all the way to the long-term success and your thoughts and your perspectives, anything that came up for you, please speak it. And talk to us about it, put in the comments. Let's create this and keep going with this open discussion and dialogue. And we're really grateful for these 15-minute, half an hour flow states where we get to really express with you. So we love you guys and we're excited for next week.
Mwah.